She is a scholar of Slavic languages, a translator, a writer of the fantastic, frightening, lonesome, and humane, and most recently added to her list of designations an International Booker Prize shortlisted writer. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Bora Chung for Korea 24 one sweltering summer day last year, and I'm pleased to welcome her back to the program to discuss how her life has changed in the past months, as well as what's ahead for her. So welcome back, Bora.
Hello.
It's wonderful to see you. How have you been?
I've been very busy, hectic, and wonderful and disorienting.
Sounds about right. Very busy, wonderful, and disorienting. So we last had you on back in August, I believe, here in
Yep.
KBS studios. A lot has happened since then. Your collection of 10 short stories, which I have right here, Cursed Bunny, translated by Anton Hur, was longlisted, then was one of these 6 works to be shortlisted for the 2022 International Booker Prize, which is, of course, one of the big 3 literary awards in the world. So, catch us up. What has the whole nomination process been like for you?
It's been a whirlwind. I think that's the appropriate word. When I was longlisted, I never thought I would go up to the shortlist, but I did. And then I came to London when the pandemic is still going on. And that was a little disconcerting, but all the events were very fun. And I got to meet all the authors and the translators, and that was amazing. That was one of the best things that ever happened to me in my whole life. And and I got to meet some readers who said they read my stories to their children, and please don't do that. Please do not do that. So yeah, I've been ruining the future generation. Um,
So, can we unpack that a little bit? I was going to ask you, so were there any moments that stood out as you mingled and spoke with your readers and also fellow writers and translators? But you said one of them had shared that she shared or read the book to their children. What was that like? Because
yeah,
this is not a children's book, even though it's got a cute bunny on it.
at least 5, 6 people me and told me that they read my story to children, and their children fight, and for some reason they looked really amused. Um, and one person told me that she read The Head to her 6-year-old son, and now her son is really afraid of the bathroom. So whenever her son needs to go to school or someplace and doesn't come out of the bathroom for too long, then she would bang on the door and say, "The head is coming to scare him out of the bathroom."
The head, for those of you who perhaps are not familiar, is this head that literally pops out of the toilet in the very first short story that is in Cursed Bunny, which I believe you had said was your very first short story, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it's from 1998, when I first wrote for my college literary award.
Yeah. And I remember you saying that you had gotten your start because you were gunning for that $1,000 prize. But
Yes,
fast forward several years, here we are. You are in London and you are, really shining. The world is starting to get to know you and your work.
and scaring children and dispensing misinformation.
No, you are
May I
encouraging their creativity. How about that? Let's put it that
may I share
way.
another story? This is
Imagination.
amazing for me, but I don't know. So Ms. Daisy Rockwell, the translator of Tomb of Sand, the winner of National, she has a 13-year-old, and her daughter loves, for some reason, her daughter Lenny. she even bought her own copy,
Oh,
apart from the copy that Ms. Rockwell bought. And so Miss Rockwell was one day working in one room, and across from the corridor, her daughter was reading Chris Bunny. And all of a sudden, she told me that all of a sudden her daughter yelled, "Mom, does birth control pills make you pregnant?" It's the embodiment. No, 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 no. That is fake news. No.
adult themes in these short stories, as a heads up to our new readers, perhaps. Okay, so you've talked to a lot of people. You've heard responses from your readers there in the UK and internationally. Have you heard? Has the response been different from what you had gotten in South Korea previously?
Um, they're all afraid to go to the bathroom. That was international. That was globally common.
That's how
Um,
powerful the head is. The short story.
oh no. I think non-Korean readers find the stories more amusing. I mean, they say my stories are terrifying. The stories are scary, but they find it more fascinating. I think Korean readers are more used to the Asian urban legend style, so maybe the Korean readers don't really see anything new in it.
Okay, but to the international reader, this was fresh. It was different. And do
Oh,
you think that was part of the appeal of Cursed Bunny in terms of the judge and jury of the Booker Prize? What do you think made it possible for your work to be shortlisted for this big honor?
I wouldn't know. Anton Hur's translation, for one thing, he put two of his translations on the list, so he is an amazing translator, and I was really lucky to have him. Apart from that, I don't know. I can't really sing praises for myself, so I honestly really don't know, but I'm grateful.
Well, since our last interview, many more people have come to know of your work globally. I'm seeing, people on YouTube reviewing the book with his signature purple cover with the pink bunny. And I've seen that people are quite curious about your writing process, especially as you kind of have this unique way of melding the grotesque with the familiar in a lighthearted and sometimes funny and hilarious way. So, if we could kind of dig into your writing process a little bit, how do you select your unique subjects and write out your story? Is it kind of I don't want to say formulaic, but is if there was a formula to the way that Bora Chung writes, what would it look like?
Um, I sort of practice imagine going the unreal way. So whatever happens in life, whatever mundane, common, everyday scenes or experiences you have, I try to think of ways to make things go the opposite of logic or the opposite of the law of nature, and try to think what then. The phenomenon itself would be one thing, and people's reactions would be the second thing. And those two combined will make a story. So I try to go the opposite way.
And what's the reasoning behind that? What is the intention behind that?
I think I mentioned it somewhere a lot. When I wrote The Head for the first time in my life, I showed the first page to my sister. And back then, I didn't know how to ever take any class. Nobody taught me how to write. So I just wrote what I thought would be a realistic response to a head coming out of a toilet. And my
Made of your
sister,
poop.
yeah, yeah. And in the first draft, the protagonist was shocked, was terrified, screaming, running out of the bathroom, all those things. And my sister read the entire page, and she said, "This is boring."
Because it's
So
predictable, right? Yeah.
yeah, it is. So that's when I realized, okay, this is not fun for me. This is not fun for. So I decided to go the opposite way, and it's been working. So that's about it.
It definitely adds to the shock value, but certainly you talk about some difficult themes, right? There is patriarchy, of course, and then the ills of capitalism, just to name a couple things. But is this also your way of addressing those issues in a way that is lighthearted, and also maybe a little bit more palatable? Because it's always easier to take a hard pill with a little dose of humor, right?
You either have to laugh or go crazy in certain situations. It's not that I'm consciously trying to make things palatable. It's just that the protagonist or my projection of myself in the story is trying to get through the situation and survive mentally and physically. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Some situations are so difficult that, yeah, it is a matter of survival, I think is what you were alluding to there. If there was a message that you carry through your writing, what would you say that it is?
Message. Well, that's one of the questions that I get a lot, but I don't really know the answer to it. I guess I'm trying to say that I'm with you. Um, I a person asked me, myself a writer, and she asked me this really good question: could revenge be the message of literature? And I would say no. But what I'm trying to say in my stories is not about revenge. I'm trying to say that I am with the people who are suffering. And pain and suffering will always be in human life. It'll always be a part of human life. It always is. But I understand. I am with them to listen to them, and I'm ready to speak for them.
Mm.
That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. And I want my readers to listen.
Yeah, and shedding light on these very difficult plights as well. Last time we touched base, you were teaching Russian literature at Yonsei University. We talked quite a bit about that. You were quite fond of your students and had talked about how challenging the topic is. So there was a lot of camaraderie, it seemed, at the end of the school year. But I understand that you had recently had to let that go. Was it because of kind of the busyness that came from the success of your book, or was it something else?
I'm sorry. It was entirely something else. It was before the book nation and all the disorientation and whirlwind started. Um, it's partly because of the pandemic. After the pandemic began, I started noticing the ills of just higher education becoming worse and worse. The online education, not being able to see my students, not being able to evaluate face to face, those kind of things, and getting no support at all from school for the disabled students, for the students whose native tongue is not Korean, who have general difficulties, just no support whatsoever. And whatever I was doing as an individual was never enough. I was never a good enough teacher because of the entire situation, in this kind of situation.
Because the learning
And
was
I
being done online as well, is that right?
online. And yes, and because partly because I teach language. Um, when you teach a foreign language, you have to be able to see the student, how their mouths move, how they pronounce things, how
Sure.
they understand things. And I couldn't do that for a whole 2 years. And I was in despair. I felt like I just couldn't go on like this anymore. And then some members of my family fell ill. Um, so I decided to quit and be with the ones that I love. I love my students. I still love my students, but there was only so much I could do for them. Whereas for my family, I could do much more. If I could free up my time, I could be of more help. So that's what I decided. And then the Booker nomination came, and I thought I would be free, but I'm not.
So that brings us to our final question already. What is next for you? Will you be continuing to write full time? Will you be translating still? And what are you writing about next? I think I have seen something about sharks or maybe painkillers. What is the latest?
The painkiller story is still waiting to be revised. It's becoming daunting, more and more daunting by the minute. And the story is supposed to be about a fraud, a con artist who tries to scam people with shark meat. In certain part of Korea, people eat shark meat and they use it for family events. And there's a market for it. So that's where I got the idea. And yes, I have deadline translation at the end of June, at the end of August, at the end of November. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to work.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for making time for us today. It's been wonderful to catch up with you, and it's a wonderful moment for Korean literature. Congratulations to you, Bora, as well as to Anton Hur. This is a great, great achievement. And more people, I feel like, are getting to know a little bit about Korean culture as well, and together with your work and your stories. So all the best to you, and we look forward to seeing you back here in Korea soon.
Thank you.